Welcome back to Tuesdays with Tim, the podcast that touches on all things related to brain injuries among children and those who've been impacted by my son Luke. Today, I have a very special guest, one of my closest friends in the world, Michal Center. Michal, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here, Tim.
Well, Michal, you and I have quite the history as opposite ends of the net. Arkansas versus Kansas. We battled in the mid 80s. Kansas, you guys had a great team. We had a pretty good team at Arkansas, and then I guess we saw each other on the opposite sides of the net in the first round of the NCAAs in 1986, which I make sure to remind you every day. Um, and then, of course, we have something that's pretty unique in that we coached against each other both on the women's side and on the men's side. Tell me what you remember about those days.
Well, that's exactly correct. I mean, you're the only person. Obviously, uh, we're very close. We speak almost daily, and our history goes back over 40 years. And the last collegiate tennis match that I ever played was a loss to you. You're the only person I ever coached as a head coach against the men and as a women's coach. And then the last collegiate match that you ever coached as a head coach, you played against our team, and so yeah, been very intertwined over a long, long period of time.
You're right, over 40 years. And you were kind enough to mention that we beat you in the first round of the NCAAs in 1986, but you returned the favor when our number one doubles team lost to your number one doubles team in the finals of the NCAAs in 2015. So you guys have a national championship, and you were on the cusp as the tennis coach at Texas. But also before that, you were the men's coach at TCU, and you know what it's like to be a top five team, which you basically were almost every year. I was thinking about this earlier. I don't know how many times we played. I think Texas Tech beat Texas maybe four times, and you beat us about 40 times. But you were and always will be such a respected coach. The way your team played hard, the way your team was so well coached. And here we are now, both out of college coaching. And which now leads me to something that happened to you and the reason that you are out of coaching. If you can take me back to 2019 in March.
Well, I woke up that day. It's a Tuesday morning, March 12th, 2019. I remember it very well, and I received a text message from another good friend of ours, a guy named Peter Smith, who was a coach at USC, and I was texting him back, and I hear this loud crashing noise on my door. I thought someone was injured or someone was hurt, and I ran to the door to see what was going on. And there were about 8 FBI agents there, and um, they grabbed me and very aggressively uh, shackled me at my ankles and handcuffed me behind my back in front of my family. And it was a life-changing moment for me, to say the least. And I was involved in this varsity blues education admissions situation. We could talk for hours about what really happened, but it happened, and it turned my life upside down. I went from the team that I was coaching at that time. It was in March, won the national championship. 2 months later, we had a great team at that year, and I was kind of riding high and feeling good about things. And suddenly, in a matter of moments, everything changed for me. So here I am 6 years later, and it was a lot, but I'm trying to move forward, and we talk a lot about moving forward, and here I am today talking to you. Happy to be doing it.
Well, I think that we've both been through whether you want to call it life changing or just trauma filled moments that have continued, and you were there for me. You were in Colorado when you heard about Luke's accident. You flew into to Lubbock to be there to support. And then of course I was calling you pretty much every single day while you were put away for a few months. And I was there at hearing in Boston. And there are a lot of things a lot of people know about, a lot of things that people don't know about. And I remember there was an article that I would love for people to read. You had an article in Sports Illustrated that came out, which details things very well. But I think the main reason I wanted to talk to you today was less about that and more about what you're doing now and how you, quote unquote, have moved forward and putting your life back together.
Well, I think everybody, going through something like that or watching what you went through with Luke, and we all suffer at some point situations that knock us down, some a little more dramatic or some a little more public. But I think we all in our own way face difficult challenges in life, and I struggled. There's no doubt about it. I had difficult time getting up, and but as I continue to look at it, I think I feel very grateful. I've had great friends like yourself who have supported me. I have a great family. And I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to keep going. And in order to keep going each day, I try to find things that I have passion about that make me want to move forward. Sometimes it's more difficult than others, but I think the key is that you have to keep moving and you have to keep getting up and you have to. I talk a lot about expand your comfort zone. My comfort zone, I realized, was pretty small. I had things kind of wrapped up pretty tightly in my life with my job and my kids and my family and my friends, and that all got blown up. And whether it's something that happened to me or anybody else that faces a traumatic situation, when you deal with the trauma and feeling like you cannot handle it, the thing that I would tell your listeners and tell anyone is you can actually handle more than you think that you can.
Mhm.
Because I didn't think that I could have handled what happened to me. That to go to prison was just unimaginable to me. I never would have thought. Barely even didn't even have a speeding ticket in my life, let alone go to prison. And all of a sudden, I'm in a cell and I'm claustrophobic and I'm trapped because of COVID for 14 days in a room that's about 8 by 10 feet. And I didn't think that I could handle it, but I did. And I didn't think that I couldn't handle not being able to have the job that I wanted to have, but I did. And so I keep finding little victories and little steps in front. And sometimes I take 2 steps forward and maybe a half a step back, but as long as I keep going and keep trying, that's all any of us can do.
Well, and you were, you and I remember talked almost every day about our teams, and nobody was more focused and more disciplined and dedicated to his job than you. And, coaching college tennis was a 24-hour a day. It seemed 365 days a year, and you did this for years and years, and you were coaching, one of the top programs in the country. And then suddenly now, in the last X amount of years, 5, 6 years, you've had more freedom and more flexibility, more time. And what happens a lot of times, and I know this because of me, when you have time, you tend to think. And when you think, sometimes you're thinking about the past and you're looking back. And in our cases, we both look back not to positivity, but more to negativity, things that have happened that was difficult to overcome. And I think the message that I think is important for everyone listening is that you can't really do this alone. And you and I have had each other. We each have a couple of really good close friends, but we've been there for each other. And I think that's a message for everyone. What you're dealing with, it's difficult to do things by yourself without the help of family and friends. You over the last couple of years have developed a tremendous ability to speak. And recently you spoke at a very important conference. And if you could share what that was like and what your message is, I think this would be really helpful for a lot of people today.
Well, I do enjoy speaking. I like to speak about leadership because I do think we're all leaders to a certain degree, and leadership impacts us in many ways. And when I look back, when I was at the University of Texas, we had a massive leadership void that kind of created this situation that I ended up in when someone like DeLoss Dodds, the longtime athletic director, left, and the department kind of fell into some difficult times. So I look at leadership and how people can help others, and I think that's what leaders do. They help others try to become the best versions of themselves, and I felt like that was our roles as collegiate tennis coaches, and that could be your role as a mother or a father or a business leader or whatever position that you're in. You're trying to find ways to create opportunities for people to become the best versions of themselves. And I tell this quick little story about I was speaking to the Texas High School Tennis Coach Association, and in Texas, there's a lot of people who show up. I think there were about 700 coaches in the audience, and I walked up there and I started to talk about comfort zone, and I told this story about I got in a I was supposed to get an MRI, and I got in the tube, and I just suddenly started to panic, and I hit this little button to please pull me out, and I was so embarrassed. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm wasting your time. I promise you, put me back in there, and I'll be fine. I tried it 3 times, and I could not stay in the tube. The tube was only about an inch or two above my head. I realized at that point that I was just massively claustrophobic. And so you can imagine when I walked into this cell because of COVID, and they shut this steel iron door, and I'm in an 8 by 10 room, and I can't get out for 14 days, how I just felt so overwhelmed at that time. And I just kept asking myself, what would I tell my team right now? Would I tell my team to quit and roll over because I did want to do that? Or would I tell my team to get up and fight and compete? And then I go into talking about empathy versus sympathy. There are a lot of times in life that people can say, "Oh, Tim, I'm really sorry that happened to you. You'll be okay though." Versus, "Hey, I show up for you, and I know that you're going to show up for me. I know you're empathetic towards me, and I hopefully you feel that I'm empathetic towards you, and that I really care about you." And that when you really care about someone, Tim, when someone really feels that, they have the opportunity to achieve more. They have the opportunity to rise up and perform at a higher level. And so those are the types of things that I talked about in my speeches, and I really enjoy it. I feel like the feedback was positive, but it not only impacts a tennis coach, but it hopefully impacts anybody that's been in a difficult situation where they feel like they need a little push to keep going forward.
Mm. Beautiful words for sure. I remember when I would call you while you were in prison, and you would tell me that you just walked for hours in the heat. And then I've done the same, in Lubbock in the parks, and now in Dallas, walking and walking. And we have that similar, the need to get out and go for a walk, clear our heads, and it's been really helpful. What other things have you experienced over the last 5 years that has really helped you get to where you are today?
Trying to fill my calendar and trying to get more organized. I think one of the dangers of having too much free time is you can just get too sedentary, and you kind of become frozen. I think that's very easily done, and your mind can take you into places that are just not healthy. So whether it's exercising or trying to have projects and constantly, like right now, I have about 5 or 6 different things that I'm trying to work on, that I'm trying to stick my nose into, trying to improve upon. And if I can then accomplish some of those things and move forward, I think those things help you move forward and help you feel better about yourself. And it makes you get out. And I think one of the challenges is when you feel bad about yourself, you don't like to expose yourself. You don't want to be out there. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to be around people. And so I try to make sure that I'm around people, that I'm talking to people, that I'm pushing outside my comfort zone, even when I don't feel good about who I am. I'm trying to build that up. And that speech gave me a lot of confidence because it was very well received. That made me feel good. It made me want to do more of it. So those types of opportunities, if you can take advantage of them, put your face out there, and you'll find that you can build your confidence and want to do more. And the more you want to do, I think the happier and better off people are.
8 months ago, I made a change. And we all know at our age, 60 years old, it's not easy to change. And I had lived in Lubbock for 30 years. and made the decision to move to Dallas at the time, primarily for Team Luke Hope for Minds. And a month in, I realized that I was also moving for myself. And it's been a great 8 months. It's just what I needed. You also made a change just yesterday. You moved to Fort Worth to get back on the tennis court. Tell us about it.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I think it was a great move for you. I actually got the opportunity to go over and see your place a couple of days ago, and the TCU coach here, a guy named David Roditi, is a close friend of both of ours, and he's actually was my assistant at Texas and the godfather of my oldest son. So he's like a part of my family, and he offered me the opportunity to come up and run his tennis academy that he has on the side. And so I'm up here. I'm going to be on the court. I'm going to teach a little bit more. I'm going to be busy. I'm going to try to help some kids again. I'm going to try to help grow the academy, and it's a project that like I was saying earlier, if I can prove the academy and show up every day and talk to people, it will not only hopefully help the academy, but I think it's going to help me a lot.
We all had, at our age, and really, whether you're 30, 40, 50, or 60 years old, you go through things that you don't expect to have happen to you. And some are positives, and a lot of times you're dealing with adversity. And that word adversity, we used to use that when we were coaching, right? The adversity of a team because they were injured or we lost a couple of close matches. When you look back at it, that really wasn't adversity. Adversity is what you dealt with and what I deal with. And we've both made the decision to, as you said earlier, to move forward. And that's sort of my motto for 2025. And it's now been yours as well. And I just think that your outlook, your positivity was not always this way. And it is evolved. And because the same thing with me. It took me a good while to forgive, 8 years. But we're both in better places. And now that we're just an hour away from each other, I know we'll be seeing each other a lot more. Maybe I'll get you back on the tennis court. Maybe you can drag me to the golf course. But but Michael, you're a dear friend, and I know everyone listening will be in your corner and look forward to hearing more about what you're doing, whether it's on the tennis court or speaking. So thank you so
Well,
much
let me
for
just
joining us.
say, this in closing. What you're doing is unbelievable, and the energy and the effort that you give to the families and the children and everyone involved. I mean, obviously, I've watched you up close and personal, and I just commend what you're doing, and hopefully, whether it's myself or someone else or listening to you, if we can hit a chord to help someone make themselves say, I can do that, I can feel better, I can move forward, then this is the greatest podcast that you can have, because we all face challenges and you're helping people, and I've seen it over and over how much you help people, and you should be commended for that.
Well, thank you, Michael, and it's really my whole team, and I know this that I am doing all I can to keep Luke's legacy alive while also helping families each and every day. And you've been a big part of it by my side the entire time. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining me today.
Okay, talk soon. Bye bye.
Thank you for joining us on Tuesdays with Tim. If you found today's episode helpful, please be sure to follow and share so others can find support. For additional resources and support, visit teamlukehopeforminds.org. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. If you have a story you would like to share or a topic you would like for us to cover, please reach out. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Together, we can continue to raise awareness and support for families caring for children with brain injuries. Until next time, take care and keep fighting like Luke.